From South Carolina Public Radio, this is the South Carolina Lede. I'm your host, Gavin Jackson, and this episode was recorded on June 7th, 2024, from South Carolina Public Radio Studios here in Columbia.
Programming note. Alert.
We will have live primary night coverage with results and analysis from across the world. No, on June 11th, starting at 8 p.m. That's an hour after polls close on primary night, folks. You'll be able to watch on SCE TV channels. We'll also be simulcast online. I'm talking about YouTube and Facebook, all. And your favorite, South Carolina Public Radio, statewide. We'll bring you a full lead episode recapping all the action on Wednesday, June 12th. Speaking of primary, on this episode of The Lead, we are looking at that upcoming election with an update from State Election Commission Director Howard Knapp on the safety, security, and integrity of our elections in the state. South Carolina Public Radio's Maayan Schechter then gives us an update on what happened at the Statehouse this week and what to watch for on election night. The Lead loves hearing from everyone. That's why we have a voicemail box set up at 803-563-7169. I know you know that number. I know you know it. So just call it. Say, hey Siri, call Lead. We're on your phone. Let us know what you're up to, what you're doing, how your summer's looking, summer fun, some parental advice for Papa AT, all that good stuff. 803-563-7169. The June 11th primary is almost here, and with every election, there is always talk and concern about safety, accuracy, and trust in our elections. With conspiracy theories floating everywhere and rampant misinformation and disinformation on social media, I decided to sit down with State Election Commission Director Howard Knapp to get the latest on how the state's election system is doing, challenges his office is working through, as well as the threats his staff has faced due to misinformation. I spoke with Knapp on This Week in South Carolina and opened by asking him for an overview of how elections operate in our state.
South Carolina is a very unique state. Very few states have a system like we do, and you're correct. 45-ish states are the chief election official of their state is their Secretary of State. In South Carolina, I'm the chief election official of the state, and we have a commission, a state commission, that heads our agency, but we have 46 county boards of voter registration and elections who actually conduct the elections in each state. Mm-hmm. We're what is called in the election world a top-down state, where the state does have supervisory authority, limited authority over the counties, and they have to follow state laws and agency policies and procedures, but they're the ones on the ground conducting elections.
Yeah, we can talk more about their authority and their powers in a minute, but just to cut to the chase, tell us about the elections in South Carolina. Is there voter fraud? Are our elections safe? How do you verify all this?
So election integrity is a massive part, a massive focus of what we do at the State Election Commission. The General Assembly made some sweeping changes in 2022 with Act 150 to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. We have a robust voter registration system whereby we collect data from government sources, mostly other state agencies, to keep our voter list as accurate as possible. Mm-hmm. We have security partnerships with SLED, Homeland Security, the FBI, others who monitor and help us secure our election systems in the state.
Mm-hmm. And now we have that paper trail too. That was a recent development too. You've been in the office for 2 years now, but that came right around the time you got there?
I arrived about 4.5 years ago, but I've been in my current role for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So in 2018, our new voting system was procured. It was first used at the tail end of 2019. It is a paper-based voting system. So no matter what happens with any of the election equipment, at the very least, we have a paper ballot, which is the backup that shows this is how that voter voted.
And then you also conduct audits, hand count audits too?
Yes. So one of the first things I did as director was stand up a new division of audit. And we conduct two kinds of audits. We conduct post-election audits, which is really the audits that most people hear about in the news that verify the results of the system, match hand count audits where we select precincts and offices for the counties to go through the paper ballots to ensure that the paper hand count matches what the system says. And we also conduct county office compliance reviews, much like other state entities that do compliance reviews, just to ensure that county offices are following state law.
And everything's up to snuff, right? I mean, everything matches up. There's never been any issues, never been widespread voter fraud of any case?
There has not. There's never been any widespread voter fraud since I've been at the SEC, since I've lived in South Carolina. But all of our audit reports are on our website for public view.
SCvotes.gov,
Yes.
everything's there. Legislative Audit Council, which is like our investigative arm in the state, reviewed the state's election process and found that some individuals may have violated the law. For example, there was about 3.7 million registered voters at the time of this audit, and 3 ballots were cast between 2022 and 2023 under a dead registered voter's name. You hear about that happening from time to time. And there are also more than 1,500 dead individuals on the rolls as of last year. 10 inmates voted in elections between 2010 and 2021 while incarcerated, so still voting behind bars, but some 212 offenders on parole also voted. So obviously some small issues. How does that stack up, and what do you say to those numbers?
So with the dead voters, the 3 dead voters, this happens every general election. People do vote absentee and then pass away before Election Day, and that's what happened in those 3 instances. It happened in 2020, almost the exact same number. A few voters, unfortunately, or fortunately, they voted absentee and then unfortunately passed away before Election Day. When it comes to, and I tell all the groups I speak to about this, our voter list is only as accurate as the information we receive. So we receive conviction data from the court system, law enforcement, and other entities like that. So when we have incarcerated people who are voting who should not be, and we verified, we never were notified that they were incarcerated. So there needs to be work statewide on voter list maintenance in terms of just how agencies collect data about their different concerns. Our list is only as accurate as the data we receive.
When we talk about the roles that we have here in South Carolina, how often do you all go through those to see who's active, who's inactive, and then clean those up? Because that's always a bit of a controversy too.
So every 2 years, we send out a mailing to people who have not voted in the last 4 years. So you can be made inactive if you don't vote every 4 years. That's not a big deal, because if you haven't voted in a while and you've been made inactive, when you go to vote, you can be very quickly reactivated. But yeah, that's one thing we do. If you're sent election mail throughout the year and it's sent back to your county election office, we'll make you inactive for having moved or returned mail. How often do we do this? It's anywhere from monthly to every 2 years. We do some kind of process to ensure our list is as accurate as possible.
Yeah, again, just accuracy, integrity, and safety. So
yes.
And again, no problems all around. Just trying to deal with all the bureaucracy that comes with it sounds like. But also there's been a lot of external pressure, political pressure on your office too. Recently, you all had to deal with some sort of issue with voter registration forms that have been mailed out by other agencies to immigrants and asylum seekers who are residing in the state, who are receiving federal benefits. By law, they're required to get information about registering to vote, just like anyone who receives federal benefits. So, but this became a huge deal with Greenville Republican Representative Adam Morgan, who is running for Congress, who's over the House Freedom Caucus, suggesting that non-U.S. citizens are doing something illegal. State law enforcement division said that's not the case. They investigated it. But on the flip side, y'all have been receiving a lot of heat from this, even death threats to your office. Kind of clarify for us what that's about, what's going on when it comes to non-U.S. citizens and how they're not able to vote.
I understand the concerns that were raised and have been raised by people across the country. So the Help America Vote Act requires that any government entity that services clients like Medicaid or anything like that, they have to provide that person with an opportunity to register to vote. It's federal law. In that instance, Health and Human Services, they have a packet for all new clients. It included a form that said, would you like to register to vote? It was not a voter registration form. It was just a declination form. And it said on the form, if you're not a U.S. citizen, don't fill this out. And I don't know all the details of how that went down, but I can assure you we do not register non-citizens in South Carolina to vote.
What was it like in your office after all this kind of came out?
So when Representative Morgan's tweet came out, we started receiving harassing calls, and then we got some death threats from people from out of state, actually. My staff and myself were coming to work and having people call and say pretty horrid things without knowing what was going on. And it really impacted my staff. And what's most important to me is that my staff can come to the office and feel that they're safe and secure because they serve the citizens of the state. And when they come to work afraid for their lives, that's not a good thing.
How frustrating is it for you and your staff to hear, folks say there's rampant fraud, there's inaccuracies, there's all these issues? I mean, y'all are just doing your jobs and you're just bombarded by not even facts, but conspiracy theories.
It's incredibly frustrating. And we have been fighting. I tell people the 2020 election has never ended for a lot of us that have been in it, who are still in it since then. There are a lot of conspiracy theories about elections stemming from the 2020 election through today, and all of them unfounded, all of them unproven. And what's frustrating to us is we come to work every day. We are voters too, and that's why I tell people I'm a South Carolina voter. My staff are all South Carolina voters. We want the system to be as secure and as accessible as it can be for all of our citizens who vote. If anybody wants the system to be as perfect as it can be, it's me. Mm-hmm. And for people to think that my staff or I or my commission are acting in bad faith in any way, it's a slap in the face to the people who come to work for the people that are upset.
Mm-hmm. And it's been repeatedly investigated and shown that there's nothing to it. SLED, LAC, I mean, any number of entities could investigate you to try and find something, but there's nothing to find out because there's no issue.
Yes, we have been investigated by every audit or law enforcement agency in the state on all of those claims, and every single audit or investigation has proven that it's unfounded.
Mm-hmm. And just kind of wrapping up here, Howard, I want to ask you just about what it looks like at the local level, because like we talked about earlier, y'all are over all the state, there's 46 counties, each county has its own election office. You're looking to get a little bit more control over those offices because right now it's a little haphazard in some ways and you want to see maybe more standardization. What's happening at the local level?
So part of Act 150 was to reiterate to the counties standardized policies and procedures. In fact, there were several sentences written in that bill, now law, that say counties have to follow federal law, state law, and agency policies and procedures. This was a big part of former Speaker Jay Lucas's agenda when he was in office towards the end of his term. He wanted standardization, and I agreed with him. He wanted all candidates and voters to be treated the same from Greenville to Charleston. Mm-hmm. And that's still my mission. What's frustrating is voters, if they know about the State Election Commission, something happens in their local office or at their local polling place, and they get really mad about it. So they call the state thinking we have control over it. We don't. Mm. I have members of the General Assembly who want me to help step in and do something about a situation that occurs in the county. I can't do that. I don't have the authority to do it, and I'm not seeking more authority necessarily, but I'm telling the General Assembly, if you want things to change and you want more accountability, you have to be the ones to do it.
Great conversation there with Howard Knapp, State Election Commission Director. Again, check out scvotes.gov to find your sample ballot, your polling location, everything you want to know about elections. Now, remember, on Election Day, you ask for either a Republican or Democratic ballot when you go to the polling places. That's why I'm saying you want to check your ballot before you go. See maybe which race is more competitive. You can vote however you want to. You're not registered by parties here in South Carolina. And then, some races might not even have any opponents. So check it out. And I'm saying that because choosing candidates in these races will probably be your best bet in influencing the outcome of the general election, because 80 Statehouse incumbents will have no opposition come this November. Again, not all races are competitive, so check your ballots. In fact, there are 55 Statehouse seats that have no primary or general election challengers. So congratulations to all the winners. And come November, there will only be a handful of competitive Statehouse races due to, say it with me now, gerrymandering. Yes. There are no statewide races on the June or November ballot, the highest level races being congressional district primaries right now. Now, I said all that to preface my conversation with South Carolina Public Radio's Maayan Schechter, who made some time for me and us on This Week in South Carolina to recap and look at the primary. Here's Maayan.
I think I'm watching, I think you're watching, I think anybody who's paid any attention to the Statehouse over the last couple of years is watching what happens between the members of the House GOP caucus, which is the more established caucus, and then the 16, 17 members of the House Freedom Caucus. And of course, as background, as you'll recall, members of the House Freedom Caucus, I think with the exception of perhaps one, are not members of the House GOP caucus because they declined to sign a set of rules that they considered loyalty oaths. And after that, had, I mean, basically put a target on their back. And over the course of the last several months, we've seen issues on the House floor. We've seen this issue that just came up on sine die with the health bill that has placed more targets on their back. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, whether the House Republican caucus and their aligned challengers to the House Freedom Caucus can pull out a win. You know, I think if the House GOP caucus maybe perhaps loses a seat or two, but does wind up winning these other seats against Freedom Caucus members, they will see that as a win. The House Freedom Caucus on the other side really probably, they're around 16 or 17 members. I think if they can get back to the 20 members or so that they had at the beginning, they will see that as a success. But really, this is kind of, while, you know, I don't know if everyone expects the House Freedom Caucus to grow exponentially, this is really sort of the fight that we've all been waiting for. This is really the last 2 years are culminating to this moment, and it will, you know, to see what happens in the House moving forward.
Yeah, and that affects, you know, people are probably like, okay, great, politics, whatever, how does that affect me? But it does, because we're talking about possibly things becoming more conservative, not only in the House, but also in the Senate, where a couple of votes have really made the difference when it comes to major legislation too. So, but it was even interesting to see the Post and Courier editorial board came out and said in an unprecedented move, they came out against all the House Freedom Caucus members, saying, quote, the SC House Freedom Caucus is unlike anything we've encountered before, and it has forced us to write this unprecedented anti-endorsement. So you're seeing them come out full force. So it is going to be kind of a make or break moment, it seems like, for that group, especially when you have the House Republican Caucus, you know, pouring a lot of money into their members' races to fight against these folks.
And I think, too, if you want to break it down in terms of, again, how important, you know, look at particularly the upstate. Of course, there are races dotted all around the state between House Republican caucus members or their aligned challengers and House Freedom Caucus members and their aligned challengers. But look at the upstate. There are, you know, Spartanburg, Anderson County. We have seen over the last couple of years incumbents with power, such as Rita Allison, the former House Education Chairwoman, Brian White, the former Ways and Means Committee Chair, lose their seats to House Freedom Caucus aligned candidates and now House Freedom Caucus candidates. We know that, for example, the governor and others have been actively campaigning for Jay Wist, the Assistant Majority Leader in Anderson. So there is a lot of focus right now on particularly Anderson County and I think the other counties, because those counties have done such a good job in terms of booting incumbents out of their seats. But of course, all over the state, there are a variety of those kinds of races that are worth paying attention to on Tuesday.
Yeah, and of course, the governor is the most popular elected official in the state, according to the Winthrop poll that just came out. So his help does not hurt in some ways, maybe, but of course it's primaries, so there's a lot of motivated voters. These are some very active, engaged people that are voting in the primaries that make these decisions too.
Right, and going off the governor, I think this is important too. You know, the governor has enjoyed a very positive relationship with the House of Representatives under now Speaker Merle Smith and his predecessor, former Speaker Jay Lucas. Obviously, the budget starts in the House. He's seen a lot of his executive budget reflected in their budget. He's seen some of the policy decision wants that he has proposed also reflected on the House floor. So it's important to clearly him and the governor's office to continue this good relationship, and some of the issues that he has wanted to move forward, such as this health consolidation bill that was objected to by a House Freedom Caucus member on the last day of session, probably not been a very good sign to him. You know, he's largely been hands off of this fight between the two, mostly behind the scenes has said things like, I want these two sides to get along. You know, people don't need to have an entertainment reality show on the House floor. But I think what has occurred over the last couple of weeks has clearly shifted the governor and his office to get more active in terms of supporting either House Republican incumbents or even some challengers to House Freedom Caucus members.
And then when we shift over to the Senate, Maayan, we have a couple minutes left here, but the Senate's also for re-election this year, 46 seats. They're every 4 years. This is the first time they're using that new redrawn map. There's 30 Republicans, 15 Democrats, and 1 independent who caucuses with the Democrats. The big theme here is the sister senators. We're talking about those women that helped to really kind of lessen the blow when it came to the abortion ban bill that was being debated in the years past. What are you watching there? Are there any other difficult races with just a few moments left?
Right, and they obviously face tough opponents because of their vote against that very restrictive abortion ban that came up on the floor. So, of course, looking to see whether the Senate has fewer women is something definitely worth watching. There's an open seat in Spartanburg. Senator Scott Talley is not running for re-election. That is a wide open race. Former Senator Lee Bright is one of those candidates in the race. So it remains to be seen whether the Senate becomes even more conservative based on the primary in November. We're looking at the primary race on the Democratic side between now Senator Dick Harpootlian and House Representative Russell Ott. That is a very interesting race to watch. And then there is an incredibly wide open race for McElveen's seat in the Senate. I mean, there are just
Democrat Thomas McElveen,
handful of candidates there on either side. So all three of those races, very, very important, I think, to the Senate.
And I've did a bad job with our time here. We have less than a minute left, but we have Congress to look at too. Those are going to be some big races. There's a lot of people that are safe. We're talking about Russell Fry, Joe Wilson, who has an opponent, but also is going to probably cruise to re-election. And then also folks like Ralph Norman. But there are the big races, and Jim Clyburn, of course, the lone Democrat. But there are big races in the upstate. We're talking about Jeff Duncan's seat that's open in the 3rd, and we're talking about William Timmons, who's fighting for re-election in the 4th against Adam Morgan. And then down, of course, in the coast and low country in the 1st congressional district, Democrats and Republicans battling out there. So what are you watching these big congressional races here?
I think what happens between House Freedom Caucus Chair Adam Morgan and Congressman William Timmons is probably the big one. I mean, that seems to be the most competitive race happening right now in the primary. And so I think that is probably the biggest race to be watching. But yeah, the 1st district, William Timmons race, the open seat after Jeff Duncan is leaving, all worth watching and very entertaining right now.
Oh, Maayan, what a team player. You can join both of us Tuesday night at 8 p.m. on SCE TV or South Carolina Public Radio or online for live results and analysis. We'll also have Winthrop University political science professor and friend of the pod, Dr. Scott Huffman, with us remotely. And SC GOP Chairman Drew McKissick will be with us briefly as well. So we have everything going on June 11th starting at 8 p.m. Check it out. Welcome to the wind down section, our little break from the news. We're glad you're here. A.T. Shire, welcome to our safe space.
Oh, I feel so good, so safe, so like I'm in the womb. I'm so safe in here.
He's loving all the baby metaphors.
Yes.
Metaphors.
Metaphors. Yeah, there you go. That's
Metaverse.
Right. Yes.
Real quick, how's baby Rena doing?
Baby Rena's doing great. She's had a busy schedule this week. Yeah, busier than mine, if you can believe it, even though I have to take her everywhere. She was in the Statehouse.
Yeah.
She was lobbying, obviously, pro-baby lobby.
She is already politically active.
Yep. She wants more.
We want more milk.
More milk. Exactly right. She went to her first concert this week.
Jeez.
Oh, I know. It's been a lot. More than me. Anyway,
Yeah.
Gavin, one thing I have over Baby Rena is that I have the hopper and this podcast. Okay?
Yeah, she was trying to come in here and produce for you today. You said, please, baby Rena, let me go do my job.
I had to put her in one of the cat crates. She's trying to break the doors down and work. She's sick.
She 2 months old yet?
Not yet. Close, though. She has her mother's work ethic. Anyway, we do have a call in the hopper, and it is from a very good friend of the pod. So Are you ready, Gavin?
Yeah, love it.
Okay, here we go.
Hi, Gavin and AT. This is Baby's mama checking in with y'all again. Yesterday was the last day of school for the school year for us, and I have cleaned up and packed up, and I am out. I am so ready to be done, which is good because I am. I am looking forward to a few weeks off with my babies and my husband, who, by the way, is a little grumpy with me. Apparently, I was a little too harsh with that baby girl last time. I do stand by my words, though. She is a little bit feisty, a little bit fiery. We are planning on spending time together as a family, doing some different summer camp type things around here, and going to the library as often as we're allowed. I hope that y'all have a good summer as well. Thanks for all the hard work that you do. Kiss the baby for us, AT. And I'll check in with y'all later. Bye.
Baby's mama, thank you for calling. School's out for summer, AT.
Yeah.
She's out. She's free.
Yeah.
I remember that. My mom taught for about 20-some years as a school resource officer. She was a school resource teacher. And I remember like closing out the classroom like that was just like done. I remember last day of school was always like that week, that day was just like the best. And you had like one of our friends always had a big blowout party. And like that was like when you you shot your shot. And like, and like, everyone's like, all the things happen on that party.
I loved throwing out all my coursework straight into the garbage. I loved to do that. I loved doing that.
I would save my notebooks.
No, never. I threw everything straight out, like
from locker to dumpster.
I didn't save a single thing. I don't even know if I have a yearbook.
Oh, you're one of those people.
Yeah,
I have all my baby yearbooks.
I purged all that stuff as soon as that last day came. Boom, straight in the garbage. I loved to do it. I loved doing it in front of the teachers.
Light cigarette, stubs it out. See ya, teach.
Yeah, I would pour gasoline on it and walk away and do a dramatic over-the-shoulder cigarette flick.
So many 80s movies there.
And then I ended up marrying a teacher.
Oh.
So I regret most of that.
I remember in third grade, we didn't have a yearbook that year, and I was so angry about that I made my own yearbook. Tell me you're going to be a journalist without telling me you're going to be a journalist.
Yeah, my God, yeah.
It was sad, but it was something. Nowadays, the kids can just do it on the computer. I had to like print it out, try and make it look cool.
I hate that for you, honestly.
It was
Who hurt you,
Big media. I've been dying for this my entire life.
Big yearbook.
Again, the kids these days, they got everything they want. I had to print things out, try and Xerox stuff. I was like trying to hold my class together. The whole school was on my shoulders.
A real glue guy. You're a real glue guy.
So yeah, but I have my high school yearbooks.
I don't. I've gotten rid of them. I probably just lost them, honestly, or like I've moved so many times since then that I was like, I don't need that.
It's a good question about how much stuff do you continue to, like I moved around a lot. I went from Maryland to Kent to Lima to Columbus to Baton Rouge to Florence.
I love how
to Columbia.
You say Kent instead of Ohio. But keep going to Columbia.
Oh, England, no. Ohio.
No.
Oh, Florence, Italy. South Carolina.
No.
I mean, it was like studying abroad.
Yeah.
But then, like recently, I'm like, I'm sick of stuff. I don't have so much stuff. So you go through, you pare down, like, how many old school college newspapers do I really need?
Well, that's sort of important for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But then I'm like, who am I saving it for? Actually, it's kind of funny. I had this not debate, but I kind of called out a friend a long time ago. She was a very vociferous journaler, and I'm like, Bethany, what are you doing this? Who are you doing this for?
Yeah.
And I think I even said like, what, so people can read it when you die or something like that? Like kind of like being abrasive in my 20s, but now you think back like, oh, like it would have been nice to maybe journaled more, but I don't know. Like
I don't want to remember some stuff. There's some things just left in the past.
I think the only time I really used to journal was like when I was angry.
I never journaled once in my life. I just shared my emotions immediately for better or worse.
And now the iPhone, which you don't have, but like it's like, hey, here's a journaling suggestion. I saw that you were in Chapin today.
What?
Do you want? Yeah, it's like prompting you to journal more.
Freaks. Not you're a freak if you do it. It just the intrusiveness of technology is more what I'm speaking about.
And while we're continuing to dunk on Gen Z fashion and appropriating millennial culture, the other day I went to the gym and I was wearing an MTV tank top.
Music television.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if you knew this, but they actually used to show music videos on TV.
Interesting. Yeah. I remember my favorite one, Freak on a Leash by Korn. Anyway, keep going.
Is that the Bullet?
The Bullet one, yes. Where he metal scats. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what it sounds like.
I actually might have been appropriating my own culture because we didn't have cable. I didn't have the MTV.
Yeah, there you go.
Every time we'd go to the beach or a friend's house, we would sit from the TV.
There,
I'm like, what's on Nickelodeon right now?
Oh, yeah. So you were a poser. Yeah. Okay.
So now you're a poser. Now I'm a true Gen Zer. I'm posing like they
you're
are.
A poser.
And that's what I realized. I read this GQ article about like how they're all wearing like Bass Pro hats and pajama pants with like Nirvana t-shirts.
All
like,
stolen valor, all poser. All poser stuff.
Back in our time, like you couldn't do it, like still, like respectively, you couldn't do that without knowing what you're doing. You get called out in a second.
The thing
now
about
it's like, oh, that's a fun little T-shirt about like Kurt Cobain.
The idea of, I think it probably started with like Hot Topic or something.
Yes.
Where you had easy access to these like
graphic tees.
But like the fact that like Nirvana shirts are sold in like Target and stuff, it's not that like I think like no one should have access to these shirts unless you can name 3 songs. It's more like I had to like call a number, find these weird like Pantera and Metallica shirts, and I had to order them and use the phone and talk to another person somewhere else and then get them, where like it was a trek to be able to get my Sepultura stuff, and so like nowadays it's just too easy. Everything's just at a click of a button. Like
Old Navy.
Again, it's at Old Navy.
You
like
gotta get your East Bay catalog. This guy was going through the
East Bay,
just dropped a bomb on 18.
East Bay,
I bet you were probably like obsessed with the East Bay catalog.
Dude, I would buy all my baseball stuff, my cleats. I would get Jordans and stuff. I would get skateboard shoes from my CCS magazine back in the day. Oh, I'd drive my dad crazy. Dad, you got to call. You got to call and get this stuff for me. There was no... the internet was dial-up, and if you wanted to look at one picture of Slayer...
Good luck.
You're like, I'll click that photo, and I'll come back in 15 minutes and see how far it's gone.
Yeah, if no one picked up the phone line.
Oh, yeah, I know. Anyway, people, it's too easy.
Yeah.
It's too easy.
Yeah, they can wear them, but it just seems so... If you don't know what you're doing with it, why are you doing it? You're just doing it to do it because everyone else is doing it? Like, am I not understanding peer pressure in fashion?
They do look cool. The shirts look cool. And when you look back at all these old Iron Maiden shirts and Metallica shirts, like, they look awesome. I can't imagine.
Original ones. Like, I'm not here for, like,
they still look cool, and these people are right that they do look awesome. Like, Slayer font is awesome. Metallica font is awesome. Iron Maiden font is awesome. They are right. I just can't imagine that I was right in 7th grade. But anyway, what I'm also right about is the show must end.
End it.
It must end. Kill it. If it bleeds, we can kill it, Gavin. This pot is bleeding.
Give us a call. Let us name 3 Nirvana songs before you call, and we all know what Courtney Love did.
She's guilty. Anyway, Gavin, we're guilty of going too long. Please.
Okay, folks, give us a shout like Baby's mama did, 803-563-7169. They're like, who's Courtney Love? Like, never mind. Check out Hole. Great band. Also, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We love that too. And you can stay up to date with the latest news on scetv.org and southcarolinapublicradio.org. And don't forget to support your local newspapers. The South Carolina Lede is a production of South Carolina Public Radio. Our producer is A.T. Shire. Amy Crouch is our supervising producer. Sean Birch is our executive producer. This podcast was produced with support from PRX and is made possible in part by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, as well as listener contributions to the ETV Endowment of South Carolina. For the South Carolina Lede, I'm Gavin Jackson. Be well, South Carolina.
Alice in Chains was the best one. I keep telling Rena, I was like, you're not from New Jersey. You are from South Carolina.
You're my little anchor baby.
You're not from New Jersey, little baby girl.